What's going on? It's Saturday, April 11th, 2026. We have 5 straight days of severe weather to talk about. Some of these could be all hazard days, meaning hail, wind, and tornado. So let's jump right into it. Here we go. This is our severe risk today. Large marginal risk across the plains, portions of the Rockies, pushing up there into the upper Midwest. We've got a slight risk for severe weather down here out there in southwestern Texas as well. If we take a look at our tornado threat today, 2% hatched threat for tornadoes up here, portions of Nebraska, Kansas, Iowa, and Missouri. What does a 2% mean? Again, I just like to explain it to people. From any point in this green risk zone, there's a 2% chance a tornado could touch down within 25 miles of that location. Only a 2% chance, but don't risk it. Have your alerts on. Make sure you know what's going on. And because this is hatched, we could see potentially if a tornado does touch down, it could be as strong as an EF2. So just make sure you have your alerts on. Grand Island, Columbus, Omaha, Lincoln, St. Joseph, Manhattan, close to Topeka, Kansas. So some bigger cities in there. And then you see we have this 2% tornado risk down here as well, stretching across portions of western towards central Texas up into kind of this southwestern corner of Oklahoma. Taking a look at the wind threat today, much larger, only 5% wind threat for most of us down here, southwestern or really western Texas, 15% risk for damaging wind or for severe thunderstorms that could produce damaging wind. And then this is our hail threat, so 5 to 15%. This stretches all the way up through portions of southeastern Minnesota. So up here, Minnesota, Wisconsin, really just a hail threat today. You see we don't have a wind or tornado threat. All right, let's get right into day 2. Here's our categorical outlook for day 2. So this is tomorrow for Sunday. Large marginal risk stretching all the way from the border of Texas and Mexico all the way up into Wisconsin. This does include Minneapolis up here, Eau Claire, almost to Ashland, Wisconsin. So northern Wisconsin. Not super typical to see this early in the year. Usually the upper Midwest gets going as we get into May. Not super rare as well, though. Only a marginal risk there. We break this down a little bit. Do we have a tornado threat? We actually do. We have a 2% across portions of the central to southern plains with that hatched risk out here near Wichita Falls up towards Altus. You can see here between the border of Oklahoma and Texas. So again, more significant tornadoes possible up to EF1, EF2 in strength. This 2% tornado risk does stretch all the way up through Kansas into portions of southern Nebraska as well. We take a look at what's happening up here to the north. We have a 2% hatch risk for tornadoes up here as well. This might end up just taking a look at the new models. This might end up being actually stretched a little bit farther to the west. I wouldn't be surprised if they actually did something like this. I don't know if they're going to, but taking a look at the latest model runs, we are seeing some storms fire off a little bit farther to the west of here that I think could be capable of producing a tornado. So we'll see. But right now, Minneapolis is just outside of this. All right, let's go over to our wind threat. 5 to 15% chance for strong to severe thunderstorms capable of producing damaging winds out here, stretching from the border of Texas and Mexico all the way up into Minnesota and Wisconsin. Like I said, that's the wind threat. And hail threat's doing the same thing, except for this hatched area, possibly 2-3+ inch hail, larger hail in this hatched area, stretching through central Texas, western Oklahoma, central Kansas, and then portions of southern Nebraska. Again, all right, let's head into day 3. And don't worry, I'm going to break these down a little bit more detail. I just want to show you where the risk zones are right now. We have severe weather again in Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, all the way up here through Iowa, Illinois, Wisconsin. And look at this. Minnesota, you're in this again. But yeah, we do have that 15% chance for strong to severe thunderstorms up there in the upper Midwest. We also have that down here across portions of the southern plains. We'll go over this in a little bit more detail again in just a moment here. This is going to be our Monday risk, by the way. Getting into Tuesday, there you go. More severe weather, southern plains all the way up into the upper Midwest, into the Great Lakes region. Now we're pushing out there towards getting close to Indianapolis, up there towards Fort Wayne, Detroit, Eau Claire, portions of Eau Claire, Wisconsin, portions of southeastern Minnesota. There is your Tuesday threat. This still looks like it could potentially be the most severe day. And then getting into our day 5, this is Wednesday. Same place, southern plains stretching out into the Midwest. Let's break this down a little bit more. Like I said, there's those 5 straight days of severe weather. Let's take a look at today. What's happening today? As we push into the mid to late afternoon hours, you can see this is our at the lower level, so at the 850 millibar level. You can see these winds, this flow beginning to increase, and this is going to help move some of that instability off the Gulf, move some of that heat, push up those dew points across portions of the southern plains, and that's why you're going to start to see some stronger storms fire off as we get later into the afternoon, earlier into the evening. Just to remind you guys, this is our threat today, so pretty widespread, but it does look like it's really going to be the most severe storms are going to be focused out there in western Texas, and then again kind of that Nebraska, Kansas, Missouri, Iowa area. Here's the 500 millibar pattern. So the mid-level pattern, a little bit higher up in the atmosphere. You can see it starting to organize a little bit better. You can see these kind of darker purples and pinks. This is what helps kind of organize. The lower level pattern that I just showed you pulls in the instability and helps promote that severe weather and helps to fire off those severe storms. And then this kind of mid to upper level pattern helps to organize it. So you can see in some of these areas, we do think some of these storms could get pretty organized. This is going to be moving off into the northeast. So I just like to show you kind of what's happening in the atmosphere. Here's what's going on with the southern portion of this risk. A lot of storms could start firing off very soon today. We're talking 3 to 5 p.m. Central and moving up into the northeast. You start to see these thunderstorms start to kind of consolidate here as we push into 9, 10 p.m. Central time. This is when you could see a little bit more of a wind risk sometimes when these storms start to consolidate into what you can call a MCS, a mesoscale convective system. You can start to get some pretty damaging straight line winds. So I do think we do have this severe threat all the way through the night and into the early morning hours of Sunday, but it's mainly going to be a wind risk in my opinion. Still possible to get a tornado, large hail late tonight and into tomorrow morning, but I think this is mainly going to be a wind risk as we get late into this evening and into tomorrow morning early. And I do want to show you guys what's happening up here with the northern end of this severe threat. Here we go. Storms start to fire off in western Kansas as we get into around 7. It could be earlier. Let's call it 6 to 8 p.m. Central. Sometime in there. Keep your alerts on. Things change. These storms start to move off to the north and east. So again, watch out. We could get a tornado or two up in that region. And it is, again, hatched. So you could get up to an EF1, EF2. All right. Let's push into day 2. Let's push into tomorrow. Again, this is your severe risk zones tomorrow. This right up here is your tornado risk zones. Here is your hail risk zone, and here is your wind risk zone. Let's get into the details here. Upper level pattern looks pretty good, I have to say, in the I always call it upper level because we're looking at the 500 millibar here. It's technically more like your mid level. A strong flow out of the west. It's more impressive than what's happening down here to the south. Let's take a look at our 850. Now, and this is what I kind of pay attention to. You have strong winds coming out of the west. You take a look at the lower levels. We're likely going to have that rotational shear in the upper Midwest here, and the winds are pretty strong. So these winds are going to be changing with height. They're going to be rotating with height. That's what can cause tornadoes. You're going to have something similar in the southern portion of this risk tomorrow. It doesn't look as strong. The rotational shear isn't as intense. The flow isn't as strong, but still there's going to be a tornado risk down through portions of the southern plains tomorrow as well. Let's take a look at what's happening with our dew points. Not a crazy sharp dry line, but there's obviously a pretty nice baroclinic boundary set up from the southern plains pushing all the way up into the Midwest. You don't see like a sharp cutoff, but there's going to be some forcing here. Now, here's what's interesting about tomorrow. We could end up with some capping. It could be completely sunny all day tomorrow. You may see no thunderstorms in the southern plains, central plains, nothing in the upper Midwest. And you're like, Connor, what about all the things you just said? If some storms do fire off, they could be very intense. What capping means is there's a layer of warm, dry air that could, what looks like it's going to, move in over this region. So as instability begins to grow and these storms try to fire off, they're going to begin to rise vertically into the atmosphere and they're going to hit that warm layer. If they can't get through that warm layer, these storms won't fire. But if that layer holds for a bit, all of that instability builds up under it and then the cap breaks, that's when you get extremely, extremely strong storms. And these days can be really dangerous because we could get into the early to late afternoon and see no thunderstorms and people start to kind of let their guard down and say, well, I guess today's a bust. We're not going to see anything happening. We're not going to see any severe weather. And then suddenly the cap breaks and late in the afternoon, early in the evening, you start to get a bunch of supercells firing off across the plains and in the upper Midwest. You got to be careful tomorrow. There is a chance that this cap holds and we don't see any severe weather tomorrow. There's also a chance the cap breaks and things get intense, and they get intense quickly. When a cap breaks, your storms fire off very, very, very quickly. They build up into the atmosphere very quickly. They come out of nowhere. So make sure you're paying attention tomorrow. It's going to be a weird day, and I'm very interested to see what happens, if that cap holds or not. All right, let's take a look at day 3. This is the Monday risk zone. Once again, we've got that elevated severe threat up here through portions of Iowa, Wisconsin, and Minnesota, Oklahoma, and Texas. You can see that down there as well, but it stretches up through the central plains. Taking a look at the flow, mid-level flow starting to look a little nicer. Again, you start to see more of these dark pinks and purples, a little bit more organization potentially for Monday. Interesting what's happening with our low level. It really doesn't start to kick on until very late. You can see 10, 11, 12. It starts to get really, really intense. Could it be a late start to our really severe storms on Monday? Potentially. Look what happens Monday as well. That dry line begins to really sharpen up. So this could actually Monday was not looking that significant to me. With the latest updates, at least with what I'm looking at on the latest run of the Rufus, Monday could end up being a pretty significant day severe weather-wise, potentially, with what I'm seeing. A pretty sharp dry line here. Nice baroclinic boundary. The mid-levels look pretty nice. The lower levels, that shear is actually really intensifying late in the evening. So it could end up being a pretty impressive day. We take a look at what's happening with our temperatures Monday. We don't have a super sharp temperature gradient. We have a pretty nice dew point gradient, but you've got some pretty warm temperatures, obviously. We're up in the 80s, mid 80s, even 90s over portions of Kansas. So you're going to have a lot of energy there. And you can see what's happening as we move through Monday. Take a look at what's happening here in the upper Midwest. Now, this is very, very interesting. Let me actually go back to this risk zone. You can see where the risk zone is from the SPC, but then you look at the updraft helicity reflectivity on the Rufus, and you have significant severe storms firing off through portions of eastern, northeastern South Dakota through central Minnesota, and this would be at around, let me check the time here. This would be as we're getting into the evening, so around 6 p.m. Central Time. Very interesting. Obviously, our actual risk zone is down here, and you really don't see anything firing off down here in the southern portion. This is very interesting. This is something I'm going to want to talk about on my live stream. I'm trying to actually put out this video pretty quickly because I got to get going, but this is a very interesting look for Monday. If the Rufus is onto something, this could end up being a very, very significant threat for Minnesota. I think the Rufus is kind of missing. Something's off here because I don't think we're going to have a full cap holding across the southern and central plains on Monday. I think we're going to get some storms through this region. So I'm not completely buying this model run right now. We do have some more organization and we do have a lot of instability for Monday. So we'll talk about this in my live stream. All right, getting over to Tuesday. Again, this is the day I thought could be, and I still think could be, the most significant severe weather-wise. Again, pretty organized mid-layer of the atmosphere here. A little bit weaker than originally projected, potentially, although there's still time for this to change. That southerly flow is actually pretty nice, and especially over portions. When you look at here, kind of north central Texas, the Red River Valley through central Oklahoma into southeastern Kansas and the northwestern Missouri here, this region in particular is what I'm looking at, is looking pretty intense at the low levels. Let's actually look ahead here, and you can see we actually have a dry line set up there as well. So this area looks pretty significant. I was originally watching this area for Tuesday, and I think we still will watch this area for Tuesday. I'm only at 7 p.m. here, and I think this area may start to intensify as we get a little bit later in the day on Tuesday. Let me take a look here. Actually, we're going to go and we're going to push back. I want to go and push back here to our 500 millibar. You can see these kind of short waves beginning to develop across portions of northeastern Iowa. You can also see some kind of kinks in your isobar on the 850 millibar here too. So we are probably going to be watching, at least if this model holds some truth, this model run holds some truth, we're going to be watching these areas for the most significant weather on Tuesday. Still time for things to change, obviously. And you can see what the Rufus does. Starts to fire off late into the afternoon, early into the evening. Some strong storms across portions of the southern plains and then across portions of the upper Midwest and Great Lakes region on Tuesday. Before I wrap this up, I did want to show you, moving forward, we may actually get some more snow into the Pacific Northwest, just into the Northwest in general, into the Rockies, maybe into the upper Midwest across portions of the plains. A few models are seeing this, which is pretty interesting. Nice trough digging in, mid to late April trough, bringing with it some snow on the northwestern edge of it, and then some potentially severe weather out ahead of it. So I do find this pretty interesting. It's not every year you get a good snowstorm halfway through late into April, especially across portions of the plains and upper Midwest. Sometimes you're still seeing that snow in the Rockies. So something to watch if we do get a tilting trough here. This could even bring some good snow out there towards the Great Lakes region. Just something to pay attention to. I did want to bring that up. I did also want to, I like just going over this quickly, 72-hour precipitation forecast. Obviously across portions of the southern plains, pushing up there towards the Great Lakes region, a lot of precipitation. Out west, you're looking pretty good, dry in the southeast. And we really don't want this dryness down here, Georgia, the Carolinas. You guys have some elevated fire risk. It's dry, it's hot. We need some moisture out there. Unfortunately, it's not going to be anytime soon. Here's your 5-day, here's your 7-day outlook, precipitation outlook from the Weather Prediction Center. Obviously, southern plains up through Dixie Alley, the Midwest Great Lakes region getting slammed out west, but still dry in the southeast. Taking a look at our temperatures moving forward, just to wrap it up. There's our 6 to 10 day temperature outlook. You can see what's happening up here, upper Midwest, northern plains, out here in the Rockies, in the Northwest, West Coast, starting to cool down. That's that trough that we think may move in and bring some snow to the Rockies, maybe even into the upper Midwest as we push into next weekend. 8 to 14 day temperature outlook stays cooler out west, cooler up north. Heat still in the southeast, although I do think in this time frame, the 8 to 14 day, we may start to see some moisture, some precipitation moving into the southeast, which you guys really need. I really appreciate you guys watching this video. If you like this type of content, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. I also run an awesome weather Discord, almost 700 weather enthusiasts in there. It's updated every day with the latest winter storm information, severe weather, climatology, hurricane information, Enzo information. Everything's in there. It's an awesome weather source. I tell you when I'm going live. I tell you when my videos are posted. You can ask my mods questions. You can ask me questions. If you want to join the Discord, it is completely free. It only costs me money. It costs you nothing. There's a link directly below this video. Just click the link. You'll join the Discord, or just add Connor's Climate Corner on Discord. I really appreciate you guys watching this video, and I will see you in the next video, or maybe in the live stream later. See ya.